Right off the rip, I'm going to hit you with the bold statement on this video. If I were to tell you there's a way to make your dirt bike suspension look like a factory race bike at home, would you believe me? Maybe the proof's in the pudding. In this video, I'm going to show you how to Cerakote your dirt bike suspension at home. At the end of the video, I'm going to tell you my first impressions and my first experiences first time spraying Cerakote. We're going to go through all the things I learned about Cerakote. We're going to be rebuilding, tearing down and rebuilding these front forks, and we're also going to be tearing down and coating the rear shock. So guys, stick around if you're interested in Cerakote. Stick around for my first impression spraying it. I'll tell you what I learned about it and I'll also tell you all about the product. So if you guys are interested, this is the video for you on Cerakote.
We're going to start by pulling the forks all the way down, starting with the dust seal. Just use a little small flathead screwdriver. You could work it in there and pry that out. Make sure you don't nick the chrome on the inside of the fork tube. That'll cause the fork seal to leak. Once you get that dust seal pulled away, you'll notice a small retaining ring inside where the dust seal came out. You'll get a small flathead screwdriver and work around the outside and you'll pull that out. Next, you want to flip your fork and you want to work at removing the fork cap. So this was an 18mm, I believe, and it'll turn out counterclockwise and you'll thread it out. It won't come out all the way, and I'll show you in a second what you got to do. So what you want to do here is you want to pull your spring down and you want to slide a 15mm wrench on the lock nut and then put your ratchet back on the top cap. You'll hold the wrench and you'll turn, and that'll break the cap away from the dampening rod.
Go ahead and pull our spring out.
Don't forget to drain the oil out of your forks.
Once you got that clip out, now's the fun part. You're going to take this like a slide hammer. There it is.
So now I'm removing the rebound valve. Normally you don't have to do this. I'm only doing this because I want to Cerakote the fork lugs, but you will need a special tool for this. I made mine out of a floor jack handle. I show it a little bit later in the video. It's a really simple design. I don't show you how I made it, but if you guys are interested, I can make a second video on how I made that. It's super simple. But you guys also have to remove your spring guide, which is held on by a little lock nut. It should be on hand tight. You remove that, then you can slide your tool right in. No problem. After removing the rebound valve, you could pull the cartridge right out of the fork. So now that fork is all the way torn down except the lugs. I saved you guys the boredom of watching me tear down the other fork because it's the same exact process. So we're jumping onto the rear suspension. First thing we want to do is loosen up the lock nut. We also want to turn the spring off to take the tension off of the spring. So once you got all the tension off the spring, you could work your way to the bottom, and there's kind of a collar there, and you got to spread them apart with a screwdriver. One end will come out, and then now you'll be able to remove the spring from the shock body. Now you want to take a punch and stick it in the hole on the shock cap on the bottom, and there should be two holes. Mine for some reason only had one hole, so that's why I had to do it on the one side. But you'll want to tap it out both sides evenly, and then once you get that cap popped off, you'll push the shock down a little bit, and that'll expose a circlip that you got to remove.
Oh, tell you what, victory feels dang good.
After removing the circlip, go ahead and pull up on the clevis on the bottom of the shock, and now your seal head and everything will pull out of the shock.
This bladder here, you gotta push in with your hand, force it in there. Same thing, you got the same kind of snap ring, and work that out of there. Same way you did your other one. Here comes the bladder. Just like that, bladder's out.
So we got all the suspension components torn down and we're ready to start prepping for Cerakote. Before I started sandblasting, I went in and I degreased these parts super well with Dawn dish soap and water. I made sure there was no oil in there that was going to contaminate my sandblast media, and I also soaked it in acetone as well before sandblasting. So I got those forks outgassed in the oven at 400 degrees for 1 hour. As that's going on, I decided to pull the lugs off the forks because I need to do it anyway. So what you're going to want to do for this is first remove the set screw, then heat up the outside of the lug for a while, for about a minute. That'll loosen up all the red Loctite that's in there, and then you can take the axle and forcefully turn that lug out of there.
Like butter. Well, maybe. Oh, God. Woo! Yep, easy. Come on, baby. So bring out a primal state in ya. How much more torque can you want, Vice? All right, so we're gonna be mixing our Cerakote up now. And if you go on Cerakote's website, they've got a calculator for your mixing ratio. We're gonna be using 12:1. So you enter your weight in grams, and that gives you how much catalyst you need. So we're doing 50 grams. That should be enough for these front fork tubes. So we're gonna need 3 grams of catalyst.
So make sure before you mix your Cerakote, you shake up the bottle for about 1 minute. If you don't, the solids will actually settle to the bottom. And if you pour it and you mix it, the mixing won't be right. The coating will be compromised and the color will be way off. So make sure you shake that bottle up for a good minute before mixing it.
3 grams of catalyst. Right there. Then you got to mix it in the beaker. What I'm going to do is slip a rubber glove over it and hold it tight like that on the end, and then mix this. Just shake it. And we're going to go ahead and add it to our HVLP gun. And by the way, once this stuff's mixed up, you have 2 hours before it cures, so you got to work kind of fast here. And you want to lay it on real nice and wet too.
So a couple things to keep in mind while spraying Cerakote, and you can see me do them wrong here. One, you want to keep the gun 8 to 10 inches away. Too close, it'll be too wet, and too far, you'll have dry spray, which will give a rough texture and the coating won't be as strong. Another thing is you want to have a very good respirator. This N95 mask I got on is not good enough. And another thing is you want to be in a very well ventilated area. So you want to have the doors open, which I did, and an exhaust fan running, just so you keep the fumes down.
So you really want a nice even coat like this, and this is setting up pretty quick, but like I said, you want to spray it on real wet. You don't get dry spots in there. This one, these are looking pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do now is put them in the oven at 250 degrees for 2 hours, according to the tech sheet. So far, they're looking pretty good. There is, and it actually looks like it's going away. I know the GoPro won't focus, but there is a little bit of an issue in the middle. Thankfully, I couldn't be any more lucky. That's right where the fork goes into the triple tree. So that's really cool that if there is a mistake right there, it'll be where the fork goes into the triple. But they're looking pretty good. Cerakote states with the plastics, mixing in a plastic beaker or plastic cup, it'll contaminate and ruin the coating. There are a couple plastics that are safe, and I'll list them on screen right now. These are the plastics that are safe that will not compromise the Cerakote coating. So if you do have a HVLP gun with a plastic cup like mine, or you do have a plastic beaker, just make sure and double check that it is the right plastic for the Cerakote. Pulled these parts out of the oven and they look absolutely sweet. Couldn't be more happy with them. Now it's time we get these fork lugs onto these forks here. It's finally time to start building the suspension. Look at this. We've got a scene change. I brought you guys in here to tell you about Cerakote. Some of you might be wondering, what is Cerakote? Well, Cerakote is the world's leader in ultra-thin ceramic coating. Cerakote has been coating firearms for a very, very long time, but now it's been expanded into many things, including the automotive industry, which rolls into the bike building community, which I'm a part of. The beautiful thing about Cerakote is it opens up many doors for possible coatings on bikes. So for example, with the front forks, the fork tubes, usually you would have to get those hard anodized because there's no other way to get around the clearances between the triples and the fork tubes. With Cerakote, that problem completely goes away. There's a lot of other things you can get away with too with the clearances. For example, let's say you're working on a linkage bolt and you have to take away the rust, and what you're left with at the end is a bolt that's uncoated. Well, the beautiful thing about Cerakote is you could coat that bolt. It will protect it from corrosion, and it's thin enough where that it won't affect the clearance. Another awesome thing is Cerakote offers ceramic coatings that are good up to 1800 degrees. So if you wanted to do a really cool thing with, like, let's say your 4-stroke header, you could also coat it with Cerakote. I have been nothing but impressed with Cerakote's website and their comprehensive training guides and all they have to offer on their website. Guys, this has been one of the best customer experiences I have ever had using a product. This is seriously everything I needed to know about the coating I was using was listed on the website with a full PDF with everything I need to do. It had video instructions, written instructions. The catalyst calculator was absolutely phenomenal. So you could really get into the door, and it's not like you're in a whole entire world of unknown. They offer everything you need for information to get you going. They also offer starter kits. So if you did want to start spraying at home, you can get going for a really cheap, affordable price. Guys, make sure you check out Cerakote.com if you're looking to take your bike build to the next level. And also, thank you, Cerakote, for helping me out on this build. So while reassembling these, you want to make sure you put a healthy amount of red Loctite in there. That's how it came out. That's how it should go back in. If you guys are gonna do this, make sure you pull out the washer or the shim inside, and also make sure that you put your O-ring. You take your O-ring out before you bake it, and you put your O-ring back in. If you don't have an O-ring here, you're gonna be shooting fork oil out at the bottom. I'm also just gonna put a dab of red thread locker onto the set screw as well. Now we could start reassembly of the forks, sliding our cartridge in. Going to be using the Pivot Works Forks Rebuild Kit. These are super nice. Once again, we're going to be using our custom tool to get this torqued down. For all my new bushings and seals, I just like to put a little bit of fork oil in a container and get those in there, get them nice and oiled up for us. Okay, so if you don't have a fork bullet, one thing you could do is take a Ziploc bag or a plastic bag, just like this one, and then you want to slide it over the fork tube. And what this does is, you can't just slide the seals on here, because right here is a real sharp edge, and that'll actually catch, and it'll rip the seal and tear the seal. So what you want to do is you want to put a plastic bag over it, and that smooths out that edge. You can also use electrical tape around here, or the best option is the seal bullet. All right, so we're going to start assembling these. First piece we're going to want to put on is our dust seal, and this goes with the metal ring. That side faces down. Next step is our new retaining ring. Go ahead, get that put on. Now is the new oil seal, and as you can see, the open end of the seal is going to go up. Generally with seals, what you want to look out for is usually this end right here is towards the side that it's sealing. So for example, all the fork oil is going to be in here. This is sealing this side. So that's just a little trick with seals. Next is our washer. This has two ends, a flat end and a rounded end. You want that flat end facing up. Next up is our guide bushing. That'll just slide right on. And now the fork bushing, which this one's a little bit tighter, so you're gonna have to kind of work this in, and it'll clip in just like that. Okay, next we're gonna be sliding our two tubes together here. All right, I'm gonna show you guys a little trick of what you can do if you don't have the special tool for setting fork seals and the guide bushing as well. What you can do is take either electrical tape or painter's tape. I think electrical tape's a little bit better, but apparently mine walked out. What you want to do is wrap this up decently thick around here, just like that. And then what you can do is use this. Your masking tape's gonna act as a slide hammer. So also, if you get any glue residue, like what I've got here, you 100% want to make sure you get all this off and you get this nice and clean and smooth. This could actually, one of these pieces could flake off and get stuck in your oil seal and cause your forks to leak. So for the oil seal on the fork, you could use the same exact method. And this is gonna be a do as I say, not what I do type of situation, because I do highly recommend the seal tool. That's kind of what I like to do here, is I want to show you guys how you can do all the work to your bikes to make a sweet build all from home without spending a whole bunch of money. And the point of rotating it and tapping it is just in case the tape wasn't put on square, there might be a high spot and a low spot. So you rotate it around 360 degrees, you tap it in all the way, and that'll set that seal nice and even. You don't got to go crazy. All you're trying to do is tap it in to where you can see that indent for the retaining ring, which we'll put in now. So this method here, I actually learned from Greg Hitchko. If you guys haven't seen his channel, go and check it out. He makes awesome bike builds. He just did a 99, I believe, KX 125 or 250 Spitfire build. Super nice build. I learned this trick from him and it's super good. I never even thought about it ever in my life. But you put your fork with some rags around it in an old dirt bike stand or your new one, whichever one. Because when you're bleeding the forks, you've got to have the inner and outer tube compressed together, and then you got to pull up the damping rod. So that what this does is it compresses them together fine. You can fill it up, bleed them, and then it just works perfect. Let me show you.
So what you're going to want to do to bleed these forks is you're going to want to fill the fork fluid all the way to the top on the fork, slowly pull your dampening rod out all the way to the top, then slowly push it back down all the way, and you'll notice your fluid level will drop inside the fork. After that, fill up the fork again all the way to the top and repeat this process about 5 to 10 times. I had to do about 10 times, and you want to have where the dampening rod comes out all the way with resistance smoothly. And then when you push it down in the downstroke, you want to make sure that the dampening rod's going in smooth with resistance all the way down. After that, you'll have to set your fork fluid level, which I'll show you how to do.
Now we're going to be setting our fork oil, and they have a special tool for this, but one thing you can do is use a piece of cardboard and mark out your measurement. On this particular one, I'm shooting for 110 millimeters. So from here, this red mark here to there, that's 110 millimeters. And what you'll do is you'll dip this in a fork, and as soon as the top hits, your oil level should be right here. And you'll want to do this with the fork compressed. Oh yeah, we need to go down quite a bit still. Right on the money. So for installing the spring, there's actually two ends on this spring. One end is gonna have the coils closer to each other. That's actually gonna be your top end. All right guys, that is one fork built. They are looking absolutely phenomenal. But here's how they're looking. What do you think? Oh, he's telling me something. Wait, did you guys hear that? He just told you to leave a like if you're enjoying. Okay, I'll let him know.
So I opted to powder coat the rear spring because I didn't have the color I wanted in Cerakote. This is OG burnt bronze. It's the same color that's on the engine cases, and this is by Prismatic Powders. Okay, so I've got some rather unfortunate news on the rear shock. The shock oil is not available at the local shop, so I've actually got to order it in. That's going to be here in about a week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save reassembling the shock for a whole separate video. That graphite black with that OG antique bronze, it just goes so well. Don't mind the way the bike's sitting on the stand right now. It's a little front heavy, I would say, just a touch. I'm in love with it. I'm super happy with all the do you mind, please? I'm super happy with all the color choices. They are just really all just going together. I know, man. So I wanted to talk about my first experiences spraying Cerakote. This is the first time I've applied Cerakote ever. I've seen, like I said, I've seen many videos on it. I know this stuff holds up great, but I'm going to kind of tell you guys about my first experience spraying this stuff. So what I've noticed with Cerakote is that prep work is absolutely everything. You must make sure your sandblasting is on spec, and you must make sure that your prep work, your degrease, your acetone, all that is absolutely mandatory when it comes to Cerakote. You can't skip out on any of the prep work. You got to make sure it's top-notch, really, really good prep work. And what you'll get if you do prep out really well is a super nice coating. Now, when you spray it, you got to make sure you don't have a dry spray and you get a grainy feel. Now, on this rear shock here, you can see this was my second spray, and it did a lot better with the second spray. It's very, very smooth, looks phenomenal. The coating is really nice and even. It looks super good, and it's super, super strong. Another thing I noticed with Cerakote is the HVLP gun you choose to use while you're Cerakoting, make sure you take in some consideration to what gun you're using. This gun, I believe for my application, is just slightly too big. I'm getting too big of a fan. A lot of times when you see Cerakote be applied, it's with a bit smaller HVLP gun. This gun does work really well for it, but I would recommend something a bit smaller, especially if you're doing dirt bike parts. The product sprays out phenomenally. Another thing is, and when I did this rear shock, I was in a rush and I forgot to shake up the bottle. Absolutely make sure every time you spray, you're shaking this bottle for a long time, because with Cerakote, it says the solids will settle. So in my example, when I sprayed it, it actually came out blue. And I noticed that while I was spraying, I managed to wipe the part down, clean it again, and all was well. So make sure you spray the bottle. I would really highly invest in a smaller, good HVLP gun. This gun did work great, but I do think I wasted a lot of material because the gun was just too big. One other thing you should be prepared for in Cerakote is with mixing, you want to make sure you have some kind of scale to measure out your parts. The way Cerakote is measured is in weight. So what the calculator does on the website, and I'll put it up now, is it makes you enter your weight in grams for the amount of Cerakote you have, and that'll tell you the weight in grams for the catalyst you need.
So that's super important. I highly, highly, highly recommend do not guess it. If you want the best coating with Cerakote, you have to make sure you do it by the book. Now, if you guys do all those steps, your Cerakote will come out beautiful and it'll look awesome. It'll be super strong and super thin. On the front forks on that YZ, you notice I was able to slide them into the triple trees. And it looked like I was having some problems, but that's just because of the triple tree design on that bike. Even before they had the anodized coating on them, I had a hard time getting those forks out of those fork tubes. Some of you may have been cringing as I was painting the threads or Cerakoting the threads on this. But for example, if this were spray paint, this would be bound up. That just shows you how thin it is. You can see there's absolutely no resistance, no binding in those threads. It's absolutely perfect. So those are my first experiences spraying Cerakote. The biggest two takeaways I found is make sure your prep work is absolutely spot on. Make sure you outgas it right. Make sure you cure it for the recommended time, and make sure you have a good gun. And remember, guys, make sure you're not spraying it out of a plastic that Cerakote does not recommend, because if you do spray it out of a plastic that Cerakote does not recommend, it'll actually compromise the coating. Well, guys, we got the rear suspension coated. We got the front forks rebuilt and coated. These are looking absolutely awesome. I cannot wait to get these on the bike. We're starting to get we're really starting to get somewhere on this build now. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below. Helps out the channel an absolute ton. And if you guys want to see the final product of this build, it's actually coming along now soon. So make sure, if you want to see more, subscribe. We should be wrapping up this YZ relatively soon, I'm hoping. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought, but that's okay. I'm having a lot of fun. So thank you guys for watching.